He's second in receptions. He's fifth in receptions for over 20-plus yards. I mean, he's absolutely killing it now that he finally has a competent quarterback that's willing to get him the football.
Kyle Krabs and Brentley Weissman of the Draft Network. Here we talk about wide receivers. And Brentley, one battle that I always see on social media between NFL wide receivers is who's the best wide receiver. And you got a bunch of guys that have a legitimate claim. But another hotly contested conversation piece is who's the most underrated wide receiver in the game. And that can be a little bit more complex because you're at the mercy of your quarterback a little bit and how consistently he can get you the ball and your production versus what your skill level is. So when you hear underrated wide receiver, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, Kyle, when I hear who's the most underrated wide receiver, I automatically think about how I think for the past, 3 or 4 years, forever, Keenan Allen from the Chargers is the most underrated receiver, right? It's Keenan Allen is the receiver that no one talks about, and he's so great, all this. Well, if you're underrated for 3 years in a row, you're no longer underrated.
And everybody says it.
And everyone says it. You're no longer underrated at this point in time. Everyone knows that Keenan Allen is, a top 5 or 6 receiver. It's no longer a question. He's not underrated anymore. I think when I think about who kind of is the new Keenan Allen, where Keenan Allen was, 2 years ago or so, I think of Buffalo Bills Stefon Diggs. I think about how Stefon Diggs is producing. I mean, right now I think he's 6th in the league in receiving yards, I want to say. He's second in receptions. He's 5th in receptions for over 20-plus yards. I mean, he's absolutely killing it now that he finally has a competent quarterback that's willing to get him the football. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of, Stefon Diggs is, super underrated because he's not consistently talked about as with the Devontae Adams of the world, with the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, with the Julio Jones or the Keenan Allens or Mike Thomases, but he should be. Stefon Diggs needs to be in that tier. And so that's why I think he's underrated, because so often we consider him more of a top 7, top 8, closer to 11-ish receiver. No. He's closer to the top 5 than we want to believe. And so he'd be my choice for the most underrated. But, I do think there's a lot of other really strong options out there as well.
So I think the thing about Stefon that is most impressive this year, you take all of the craziness of this offseason aside and getting traded to Buffalo and having the chemistry that he does. And not only that, but just how much it's clear that he is the focal point of their passing game this year. He has 110 targets in 11 games. And
last year he had only 94.
Right.
In the whole season.
And he is head and shoulders. Buffalo runs 10 personnel with this first or second highest frequency of any team in the NFL. And regardless of the depth that they have at wide receiver, that they feel so comfortable in doing that, he's head and shoulders above everybody else. But if I wanted to talk about underrated receivers, one place where my mind goes is to Carolina. DJ Moore, the former first-round pick. Now, he is on pace for his second consecutive 11,000-plus yardage season and averaging 18.5 yards per reception this year. So it's been really fun to see him, who had the stigma coming out of Maryland because of his usage, so many of the quick screens and the jet passes and touch passes and manufactured touches. This is a guy who is more of a gadget player than a wide receiver. But you watch DJ Moore, 23 years old, just really playing at a high level and creating explosive plays week in and week out for the Carolina Panthers. He's one of those ones who he's early on the curve, but if he keeps this up for another year, he's going to have a legitimate stake in my mind.
No question. Well, I mean, I'll admit personally, I'm sleep on DJ Moore. I am part of the reason why he's underrated. I don't watch a lot of Carolina football anymore since they got rid of Cam. But the numbers DJ Moore is putting up, and the thing is, he has other players around him that are stealing touches from him, that are stealing targets. He's producing where it's not like he's the only option where they have to force feed him
He
the
ain't
ball.
getting
No,
10 targets a game.
yeah, like
Bias.
yeah, Curtis Samuel, McCaffrey, who's catching almost 100 balls a year.
Robbie
They had
Anderson
Greg,
in the top
Robbie
8.
Anderson. They had Greg Olsen last year. And so what DJ Moore is doing, I mean, he's a special player with the ball in his hands, and like you said, his route tree is expanded throughout the course of his career, and so I think he's a kid whose arrow's sky high right now, and I think that's a great one. The name that I was going to say outside of Stefon Diggs that came to me was Allen Robinson.
That was the other one that I had too.
I mean, yeah. I think Allen Robinson, he'd be a clear top 10 receiver if he ever could play with a competent quarterback. I mean, it's the season he did with Blake Bortles, where I think he got like 1,500 yards receiving or something like that. Like
14 touchdowns that year too.
That is arguably maybe the best receiver by best NFL season by receiver ever. I mean, considering who he had starting the football. Yeah, and so I think I'm not sure if he's a free agent this year. I know there's some kind of contract.
Yeah.
If Chicago can't reach a deal with him, I pray he goes to a team. Even if they don't pay him top dollar, go to a team with a quarterback. Let us see what you can do, man. Go to Houston with Deshaun Watson. Go to Lamar in Baltimore. Don't chase the money, Allen. Let us see you shine, man. I want, yeah, man, be great for us, bro. I want to see you maximize your talents, and then we can finally put you in the top 10.
May or may not have been subtweeting Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky when I said it's hard to say how great some of these receivers could be at the top of the video because of the quarterbacks throwing them the football. We had one other one, Brentley, too. Cooper Kupp, who 10 touchdowns last year. He's got this great chemistry with Jared Goff. And chemistry between a quarterback and his receiver is such a big part of, you can't measure that on the stat sheet, but it's clear as day. When it's crunch time and Jared Goff needs to get some action going on the field and get a key first down, he's looking at Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, man. And actually what started this kind of conversation for me personally was when Devontae Adams tweeted out like he thought that Cooper Kupp was the most underrated receiver in the league. And look, man, Cooper Kupp, man, he's the real deal. I think he's like 6'2", runs a 4.5, can sink his hips and get in and out of breaks. He's one of the best route runners in the league, but he plays big. Like he can body DBs, he can do the contested catches, strong after the catch, has outstanding hands, and he's so smart on option routes. So he knows where Jared Goff wants to go with the football, probably before Jared even knows, And so I think Cooper Kupp, I think the world of Cooper Kupp. I think he's a really good receiver. I like to see him probably get more looks and more targets. It's tough though with Robert Woods on the opposite of him, and at the rate that the Rams are running the ball this year. But I think Cooper Kupp is another one that definitely in there in this conversation.
Yeah, you really think he probably would have more momentum if he didn't have the injury in 2018 that cut his season in half, only playing in 8 games. He was on pace for about 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns that season. Returned back at full strength in 2019, posted 1,161 and 10 touchdowns. And he's not finding the end zone at quite as high of a rate this year. But like you said, they're running the football really well. And just as importantly, they have great balance on offense. So as long as the script goes the Rams' way and they don't have to get one-dimensional, Cooper Kupp is like the X factor of that offense that really helps keep things clicking at a high level.